they never had a halacha that the Shluchei Beis Din came there and told them to only keep one day Yom Tov. It never happened because there was no such city. Since there was no such city, whenever Tzvat was established, or if it would, it's always 2 days Yom Tov. So says the Rambam, it's not totally in Gvula, it's clearly in Eretz Yisrael, but it's not totally in Gvula Eretz Yisrael, it's totally in whether it was a place at the time or not. So says the Rambam. Second condition is, Shaya Shluchim Magiyam L'sham. Even if it was a place in the time of the Bayis Sheini, but it has to be the place, a kind of a place that the Shluchim got there, meaning it was within 10 days. V'hu mahalach asar yamim Yerushalayim. Im chaser echad mitnayim elu, says the Rambam, if you're missing one of these two conditions, da'ainu yishuv chadash afshu karev liYerushalayim, or shaloi haya shluchim magiyim afshu meretz Yisrael noigin shnei yamim. That's what the Rambam paskins l'halacha. So if you want to go with the Rambam, any place that was not a city, an ancient city, you have to keep 2 days. It's chutz la'aretz. Any place which is even if it was an ancient city, but it was further than 10 days walk, let's say Eilat, let's say it's part of Eretz Yisrael, but it's more than 10 days walk, which this is what the poskim bring. I have not tried it. I've never even been to Eilat. But let's say it's more than a 10 days walk, so it's chutz la'aretz in this sense. So even though it's called Yom Tov Sheini Shel Golius, Golius is sort of like the big catch-all term for far away and not where the Shulchan didn't get to. But even in Eretz Yisrael, you have to have two conditions. So says the Rambam.
2 conditions for 1 or 2 conditions for 2 days? Both have to be.
In order to keep 1 day, you have to have 2 conditions. It has to be an old yishuv and a place which was close enough 10 days walk to Yerushalayim. Das haritva. The Ritva is in Sukkah Mem Gimel Amud Aleph. Takonas Chazal he haya loy lechalik be'Eretz Yisrael. Chazal never meant to divide up Eretz Yisrael that way, says the Ritva. Ela b'chol Eretz Yisrael yesh lasos yoyim echad Yom Tov. Where if you're in Israel, you keep 1 day. Afilu b'makom shabar shelo hagiyah shluchim, even though you're absolutely clear that the shluchim never got there. B'chol chutz la'aretz, meaning it wasn't a place. It's more than 10 days. Everything. B'chol chutz la'aretz, and if you go out of chutz la'aretz, if you go out of Eretz Yisrael, even 1 minute, so then oisin beis yamim afilu b'mkayma shegiah shluchim. Even if the shluchim did get there, kaprisim, according to some, they went to. So what you have is very, very yesodistic machlekes, the Rambam and the Ritva. The Ritva creates a very nice, clean package for us. Very simple. You're in Israel, you keep 1 day. You live in Israel. You live in Israel, you keep 1 day. You live in Chutz La'aretz, you keep 2 days. The Rambam is much more complicated. You really have to examine all Kol Makom Kedisla, yeah? So that's a machlekes, the Rambam and the Ritva. I want to say that it's the Chazon Ish and the Stipler, that's his nephew, Chazon Ish and the Stipler, his brother-in-law, Chazon Ish and the Stipler, they kept in Bnei Brak Yom Tov Sheini, because there was no Bnei Brak, and they were machmer like the Rambam. Not Halacha, didn't tell everyone to do it, because the Halacha is like the Ritva. The Halacha is paskin already in Shulchan Aruch like the Ritva. And since Halacha is like the Ritva, it's in Eretz Yisrael. We're not machalik in Eretz Yisrael itself. But being that, according to the Rambam, there was no Bnei Brak as we know it. Now we know there was Bnei Brak. It's in the Haggadah Shel Pesach. That's not where it was. They just took a place and they named it Bnei Brak. It's not the Bnei Brak. There's many proofs to that. So Babela, they kept 2 days Yom Tov for themselves. I'll tell you a bigger chiddush. The Brisker Rav kept 2 days Yom Tov in Yerushalayim because there was no new city of Yerushalayim. Of course, it could be 3 minutes away, so the shluchim certainly could have gotten there, but they didn't go there because there was no city in Yerushalayim, the new Yerushalayim. So the Brisker Rav and many Briskers Ad Hayom Hazeh want to be Yotze the Das of the Rambam, and they keep 2 days Yom Tov in Yerushalayim, in Gula. Meishorim.
What about Ramat Bet Shemesh?
Ramat Bet Shemesh they came to. This was an ancient biblical place.
Even though it's outside of the boundaries of the city of Bet Shemesh.
Yeah, so here already the Rambam goes further to say that there's a difference between something which is a suburb, in other words, an expansion of the city, where this is what the Brisker Rav points out, whereas in Yerushalayim, there's like a solid, there's a hard break there. There's a wall. You're in the old city, you're not in the old city. So it's not as, so it's interesting. Later on, years later, the Stipler, after the Chazon Ish was nifter, so the Stipler started keeping only one day in Bnei Brak, and he became more relaxed about this. And the reason is, he says, because it's really one big hemshech to Tel Aviv or to Yaffo. And Yaffo is a city that was around during the time of the Bayis Sheini. Yaffo for sure. Namal Yaffo is already in Tanakh. So so Yaffo was around. So he became, but he waited for the Chazon Ish to be nifter before he started to do a malacha on Yom Tov Sheini Shogolius in Bnei Brak.
The Briskers hold today 2 days in Yerushalayim.
Many. That's how much of a brisker,
Russian Ritva like the Ritva? The other Rishonim are like the Ritva?
The Ritva is Roy Rishonim. Roy Rishonim passing like the Ritva, that's our halacha. I'm just bringing out that there is such a thing as being machmer like the Rambam. I'm not saying anybody here should be machmer like the Rambam. I'm just saying that there is such a thing. So the Paiskim were very against the Chazon Ish in this, because what is it being? You're being machmir. You're not going to put on tefillin on the last day, on the Yom Shmini. So what's the chumrah? Now it could be that there's not such a kasha. It could be the Chazon Ish is only machmir on the blachas, not machmir on. Maybe he did put on tefillin, but I don't have that information. But one thing is for sure, it's not so pashut to just say, like, why don't we all just say, like, we're going to keep 2 days. Who knows? Ramat Bet Shemesh. Who knows about all these things? Maybe we should just keep 2 days. Well, if you're keeping 2 days, you have two problems. Number one is it's Baltosif. An extra day of Yom Tov. The Torah says 1 day when you're making 2 days Yom Tov, unless it's the minhag. And the second thing is you're being mevatel. It's just tefillin, for instance.
You give the answer to that. You can do both. You can do the chumras of both. That's the answer to that question. What did the Chazon Ish do about Bal Tosif and
So a chumrah, he said, is not Bal Tosif. He writes about it. So, but I want to bring out this point that according to our halacha, the Rav Rishonim, which is the Ritva, that's just the Rambam is for fun. And according to our halacha, which is according to the Ritva, that there's a clear division between Eretz Yisrael and Chutz La'aretz, and it doesn't make any difference if the Shluchim got there or the Shluchim didn't get there. Let's assume for a moment that Eilat is Eretz Yisrael. And Gvulos of Eretz Yisrael, it's Eretz Yisrael. So according to the Ritva, you're not Machalik. It's an Eretz Yisrael. It's an Eretz Yisrael. So the Shluchim based in didn't get there, or maybe there was not even the city where it is right now. Doesn't make any difference because so how could they how could the Ritva go ahead and how could he even argue with the Rambam? The Rambam is right. The Rambam is saying the two things had to happen. It had to be a city and it had to be Shluchei Beis Din. So the answer is that the Ritva is saying that Chazal came along and said there's a minhag to keep 2 days Yom Tov. It wasn't any longer based on the Sveika D'Yoyma. And this is a very important point, Linyan Minhagim. In other words, yes, it's based in the, we have an old tradition that there used to be a Sveika D'Yoyma, the Shluchim didn't get here. It's all, according to the Ritva, it's Maisalach, it's all Sipurim. Because when Chazal came along and they were Koveya, the minhag, they were able to make their own Gedarim. It was like a Bria Chadasha. It was a new halacha. They were able to make their own Gedarim, and their Gedarim were very simple, not to mix up Jews and to be divisive in Eretz Yisrael. You live in Israel, you keep 1 day Yom Tov. You live in Chutz La'aretz, you keep 2 days Yom Tov. So that's the important halacha. I just wanted to read you for a moment. Copied out the Lashon of the Rambam, which is very interesting. So the regular way, and that is there's two border lines for Eretz Yisrael. One is we just learned all this during Shemitah. One of it is Oile Mitzrayim and the other is Oile Bavel. You could add a third borderline of kibush that we've done today, it's the Golan, let's say. So I saw on Shabbos that somebody writes, I didn't think this through, but somebody writes that Yaakov Avinu, right, Rashi says Yaakov Avinu brought arozim from Eretz Yisrael, brought cedar trees from Eretz Yisrael to Mitzrayim, and he wanted them to grow in Eretz Yisrael for use later on in the Mishkan. So that was the big Ruach HaKodesh of Yaakov Avinu, that he gave it a century or so to grow. And these were the cedars that they used in the Mishkan, which I pointed out on Shabbos is a very, very difficult Rashi because the Torah says very clearly, Atzei Shittim. Oimdim and Atzei Shittim is acacia wood and not cedar. Okay, that's a kasha. I don't know the answer to that question, but they're not, you can't, there's no way to say that acacia is some type of cedar. It's not, at least according to Google. So no connection. Acacia looks like this. But somebody pointed out, I was looking around because of that question, somebody pointed out that Yaakov Avinu was makbid to bring cedars to Mitzrayim from Eretz Yisrael. And the only place where these cedars grow in Eretz Yisrael is way up north, either in the northern Golan, the kind of cedars that we have. You have to have 10 amos straight up. So it can't be like a wilted tree or a smaller tree. So it's all either the very northern Golan or southern Lebanon. Those were the only two places that he could have taken these cedars from. So we see that was Eretz Yisrael. That was the Gevulos of Eretz Yisrael at that time in the Golan. Yisrael ima Golan. You see this idea. But there were two, to answer your question, there was the Ole Mitzrayim, what they took over, which was a big land. There was Ole Bavel, which they didn't go everywhere. When we came back in the time of Ezra, we didn't go to all the cities. We weren't able to go to all the cities. And then there's, of course, the new kibush that we're in, which calls Israel what it calls Israel. So that's a shaila in Poskim. Same thing Lagabe Shemitah, same thing Lagabe Yom Tov Sheini. These are the questions. The Rambam says, I just want to read you the Rambam. Very interesting. This is in the Rambam, Hilchos Yom Tov, Perak Aleph, Halacha Chaf Aleph. He says, Zeh sha'anu oisin b'chutz la'aretz. The Rambam lived in chutz la'aretz, yeah? So Zeh sha'anu oisin b'chutz la'aretz. B'chutz la'aretz, kol Yom Tov me'elu. All the different Yom Tovim. Shnei Yomim. We're keeping 2 days Yom Tov. So he says, minhag hu. It's a minhag. Yom Tov Sheini, then he continues to say, midivrei seifrim hu. Umidvarim shenischadchu begolos. Ve'ein oisin b'nei Eretz Yisrael shnei yamim tovim, ela b'Rosh Hashanah bilvad. So I don't necessarily, I'm not in such a lam d'shemut to explain this Rambam, but the Rambam says really three things. It's such an interesting Rambam. Make up your mind. Why do they keep 2 days of Yom Tov and Chutz La'aretz? Why did he keep? He's asking himself. Why do I keep 2 days? So he says, Minagu, midivrei seifrim hu. Is that the same thing as a minhag? What do you say, God? Kinira. Divrei seifrim hu, or midvarim shenischadchu begolos. Umidvarim shenischadchu begolos, meaning until we were in Golos, there was never any such thing as 2 days Yom Tov.
The very suffering does not refer to the Sanhedrin.
The reserve means a drabanan.
I'm saying that if they were in, it was a minhag after the Chorban, so who were the Divrei Seifrim?
Whoever was Matik Shmua were called Divrei Seifrim, but is referring to Chazal. So what it means is that, I think what it means is part of what this Rambam means, is a very important Rambam, that, sometimes when you think something is, as a minhag, we've been talking about this for months now, but when you think something is a minhag, so it's a minhag, Because of a minhag, you don't not put on tefillin on the 8th day of Yom Tov. Why aren't you putting on tefillin? It's my minhag. Of course you have to put on. But if it's midivrei seifrim, in other words, they took the minhag and they turned it into a din de rabbanon. So now the Rabbanon have the koyach to be mevatel a mitzvah b'shevel tasa. There's no way in halacha that a minhag is going to be mevatel a mitzvah saseh deraisa. Not b'shevel tasa, and not b'kum baseh. But koyach hu b'yad chachamim, but the chachamim, that's what it means, that it's a minhag, but it's a minhag which evolved into a divrei sofrim, and once it's a divrei sofrim, so now it becomes something which is mandatory. So what's important here about this Rambam to me, besides for the perplexing lashon of the Rambam, what's important about the Rambam is that it can be a minhag in a divrei sofrim, and then he says umidvarim shenischatchu b'golus. Dvarim shenischatchu b'golus. What do you think that means? Dvarim shenischatchu b'golus. So, like in Eretz Yisrael, they never said this halacha. This was a halacha that was said in Bavel and Dvarim shenischatchu b'golus.
When it was a minhag before it became divrei sofrim, they did put on tefillin?
Yeah. So in other words, there were different evolutionary stages to this Yom Tov Sheini, which was fascinating. The time is if the Shluchei Beistin didn't get to me, so we kept it because of Sveika Diyoma. Sveika Diyoma is no longer a point. There is no Sveika Diyoma. Honestly, if somebody says, which people have said to me before, that they don't see why they should keep Yom Tov Sheini, well, there's no more Sveika Diyoma, so that's abaratzis, because there's no Sveika Diyoma, but either you're keeping the Gemara or you're not keeping the Gemara. So if you're keeping the Gemara, there's no Sveika Diyoma, but there's a new thing called Minhag Avoseidu B'Yadeinu. It's a new thing. Well, if it's a Minhag Avoseidu B'Yadeinu, so it's a minhag. So what does it mean that we're not putting on tefillin? And the answer to that is that b'divrei sofrim, that the Rabbanon came along and made this minhag. They legislated the minhag. It's not, and the simple shot, what he means is that this was a thing that was in Golus, for Golus, by Golus. It didn't affect the people in Eretz Yisrael. So here we are in Eretz Yisrael. You can say, that's where the Sanhedrin was, and that's where the Gedolim were. So l'chayr we have to be kafuf to that minhag and keep 2 days here in Eretz Yisrael. It's a Golus din. As the Rambam says, this is a din for by Golus, for Golus, with Golus. It's all about Golus. So our halacha l'maisa is like the Ritva, and the way the Rambam is explaining it.
It's not so the Rambam really.
Why? So speak it out.
You said within Eretz Yisrael there are places yes and no.
Right. So I wasn't going to mention it, but it's a very interesting steer to think about, because there he says it's not totally Eretz Yisrael b'chlal, ela b'shnei t'nayim, and here he says ubidvarim shenischatchu b'golus. Let's you say that in Golus they were mechadish for any place in Eretz Yisrael that didn't have the Shluchei Beistin. Let me. That's the background of the halacha. Go further. The Shulchan Aruch says further in Halacha Gimel. This is all in Taf Tzadik Vav. The Shulchan Aruch says, "Bnei Eretz Yisrael." Now we know. Let me just say one thing, that it doesn't only l'chayra. It doesn't only go by where you are, but it also goes by what you are. So, why do we know this? Because it's a Mishnah M'sach and Makom Shenahagu. That's why we know this. So of course, we're talking about Makom Shenahagu, right? Minhagim. So, we've been talking about that Mishnah in Psachim. So, if a Ben Chutzlaretz comes to Eretz Yisrael, we all know this halacha. If a Ben Chutzlaretz comes to Eretz Yisrael, and everybody here is keeping 1 day Yom Tov, and now he wants to keep 1 day Yom Tov, to be like everybody. It's a lot more convenient to keep 1 day Yom Tov than it is to keep 2 day Yom Tov, especially since everybody's keeping 1 day Yom Tov. So Rov Poskim say that if it's Daitoi Lachzor, if he's planning on going back after Yom Tov or whatever to Chutzlaretz, he has a din of a Ben Chutzlaretz and he has to keep that minhag of Chutzlaretz a 2 day Yom Tov. The exception to that rule is the Chacham Tzvi and the Shvus Yaakov, which say no, you're completely tuffle to the place that you're going to, and if a Ben Chutzlaretz comes to Eretz Yisrael, this is a Keneged Rov Poskim that we usually go with, but that's what they say, and a lot of people are samach on this, that if you're coming to Eretz Yisrael, if you're coming to Eretz Yisrael, you only have to keep 1 day Yom Tov. Against the regular psak, you have to keep 2 days Yom Tov because you have to be a ben Eretz Yisrael. Chacham Tzvi.
Does he hold that you're not supposed to be there? Is that what?
What do you mean?
Like the Lubavitcher Rebbe never came to Eretz Yisrael because he was afraid he'd have to stay there.
But how does that affect this? Yeah,
Let's say he's going to be.
he's got to stay here. You're saying the halacha means he has to stay here. It's very interesting because somebody asked, what you're saying is very interesting because here you have let's say the Chacham Tzvi, he's the famous one who's arguing with all the poskim, and he's saying once you're in Eretz Yisrael, you keep 1 day, no matter who you are. You go back to Brooklyn next week, keep 1 day. So they asked Rav Kook that according to this Chacham Tzvi, which he seemed to be nota to the Chacham Tzvi, so he's according to this Chacham Tzvi, so if you're a Ben Eretz Yisrael and you go to Chutz La'aretz, so you should keep 2 days for real, like not just keep 2 days before Hesi. In other words, it goes together. So it's a good question, right? It should be consistent. In other words, if you're holding that you just do where according to your geographical location, so then a Ben Chutz La'aretz comes to Eretz Yisrael, keeps 1 day, but a Ben Eretz Yisrael keeps to Chutz La'aretz. I was a Chutz La'aretz last year, Pesach. I didn't keep 2 days. I was nice. I sat at the Seder. I didn't do Malacha b'far Hesia. I didn't, I was worried about the Mishnah Berurah that you're not supposed to do Malacha even B'tzina, but I did because Malacha D'Rabbanan, like checking my WhatsApp, very, very important. But according to the Chacham Tzvi, no, it's a Chilul Yontiv. According to the Chacham Tzvi, it would seem that when a Ben Eretz Yisrael goes to Chutz La'aretz, you really have to keep 2 days, full thing. You make Kiddush, you daven for the Yamud, you do everything. You get an Aliyah. You are a Ben Chutz La'aretz. Rav Kook said that it's not true. Rav Kook said that when a Ben Eretz Yisrael goes to Chutz La'aretz, it's temporary. When a Ben Chutz La'aretz comes to Eretz Yisrael, he's coming home. You can't. The truth is that I'm just reporting. I have no opinions on any of this. But the truth of the matter is that the Chacham Tzvi doesn't talk about a Ben Eretz Yisrael going to Chutz La'aretz. Doesn't talk about your case. But Rav Kook said that since he didn't talk about it, you can't make the comparison and say, well, it must work and vice versa. There's no vice versa. And he said a Svara L'chalik. Rav Shlomo here is saying another Svara L'chalik, because when you come to Eretz Yisrael, you're not even allowed to leave. They say this about the Lubavitcher Rebbe, by the way. It's not that I saw it written anywhere. I
heard him say it.
You heard him say you're not allowed to go to Eretz Yisrael.
He said if somebody will give me a reason that I'd be able to come back, then I can do it. But I can't go. I need a heter to come back. That's what I heard on the video.
Sent everybody to Eretz Yisrael for a year. What's that? There's a fellow here who lives in Yerushalayim. He's Rosh Yeshiva now. So he came here in the 60s, like Shana, just came to learn in one of the yeshivas. And not the 60s, in the early 50s. Came to learn. I don't know where he came to learn. Maybe near yeshiva he came to learn. But before he left, so he came to the Chazon Ish. The Chazon Ish was in his old last years, and he came to Chazon Ish for a bracha before he go back to America. So he told the Chazon Ish, I'm going back. I was here for a year. I'm going back next week. So the Chazon Ish said to him, what's your heter? So he's still here. Still here. Yeah. He told me the story. You need a heter. We're pretty mature this pretty quickly. But okay.
Is it in Eretz Yisrael? Is it called the minhag that you don't do the minhag of Chutz La'aretz? Is that called the minhag in itself?
That's a good point. Might be a little different concept here. Here we go according to the Torah. The Torah says you keep 1 day Yom Tov. That's all. In fact, here it might be Bal Tosef for the Chutz La'aretz. It's not Bal Tosef because it's talking about Eretz Yisrael. The Chumash is talking about Eretz Yisrael. But anyways, let me get to this next. So the halacha and halacha gimel is, I'll just tell you the din. B'nei Eretz Yisrael sheba'u l'chutz la'aretz. Here you have, right? Here you go. An Israeli goes to Chutz La'aretz. You're going to Europe, you're going to wherever you're going to Chutz La'aretz, America. So the halacha says the Shulchan Aruch, Asurim lasais melacha b'yantiv Sheini. You take on the dinim of yantiv Sheini. Asurim lasais melacha, the Mishnah Berurah explains, to Neistin, alav chumrei makoim shahalach. Lisham. You take on those chumras. And then the Mishnah Berurah adds, va'afilo b'tzina asur. He's not saying b'tzina because somebody's going to catch you. He's saying b'tzinas, you are now a chayav in yantiv Sheini shogalius. It doesn't make any difference if you're b'tzina or you're farhesi. That's what the Mishnah Berurah says. So says the Shulchan Aruch, back to the Shulchan Aruch, let's be very careful here. B'nei Eretz Yisrael shebou l'chutz aretz, asurim lasais melacha b'yantiv Sheini b'yishuv. In a yishuv. Afilu daitoi lachsar. Unless, even if he plans on going back. So let's say we're going to, to the Greek islands for Pesach. So the halacha is you have to keep 2 days yontiv. Afilu daitoi lachsar, even though I'm only going for Pesach. But that's only if you're going to a yishuv. Now, this is extremely, the operating word here is yishuv. B'chol zman, says the Shulchan Aruch, shaloi higia liyishuv. I only got to the airport. Very simple case. I'm landing on Yontiv Sheini Shogolius in Tallahassee Airport. That's where I'm landing, on the Yontiv Sheini Shogolius. Is it okay? Are you allowed to get off the plane? I'm now in Chutz La'aretz. I left in Eretz Yisrael. Yesterday I was in Eretz Yisrael. Now I'm in Chutz La'aretz. So what's the halacha? So here the poskim tell us, or Moshe, others, that the airport is Nishkin Yeshuv, and Mamela, you don't have to keep Yontiv. So what do you have to do? Before you go into the neighborhood where there might be Jews, even a few Jews, before even Machal Shabbos Jews, and the Mishnah Berurah says doesn't make a difference. But before you go into the neighborhood where there's Jews, you have to wait there at the airport until Shkia, until the sun goes down. You don't go into a Jewish neighborhood, but you don't go into a yishuv. But if you're not in the yishuv, it's mutter. So you're moving to America. Ein daita lachzor. But I'm not in a yishuv. So since I'm not in a yishuv, mutter lefisha adayin, beautiful lashon of the Shulchan Aruch, lefisha adayin loyhukba liyos kemoisam. I love this lashon. First translate. Loyhukba.
Here's a deal here. Isur melacha is not the same as keeping a second day. If he has to daven, he would daven the tefillah chol, because for him it's still a yom chol. But he doesn't do any Isur melacha. So
he doesn't make Kiddush the second day.
L'chora, that's what it seems to be saying.
Asurim lasais melacha. And here, it's a big tumult that the Mishnah Berurah brings, whether that means it's yontif for you or not. But you're right. Shulchan Aruch says, Asurim lasais melacha. If you get to the yishuv, we're past that. Let's say you don't get to the yishuv. It's mutter. Why? So Shulchan Aruch adds a svara here. Lefisha adayin lehukba liyos k'maisan. What does it mean? Two inyanim. There's one inyan is Maris Ayin, and another inyan is being mazalzal b'yontif for them. Stop. Maris. But the third idea that the Mishnah Berurah says is that it's yontif. That's why even b'tzina it's aser. Mishnah Berurah says it.
Hukba requires yidden.
Adayin loy hukba liyos k'maisan. So it means like I'm a 1 day guy until I get to 2 day community, and then I have to be hukba liyos k'maisan. Hukba like koveya.
If it's a yishuv of goyim, no yidden there.
Yeah, it has to be Yishuv Yisrael.
So
But any kind of Yisrael.
I take a taxi to Canarsie, get out of my taxi in Canarsie and walk in Flatbush.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Unless you're going chutz l'tchum.
No Jews live in Kneissen?
Not me.
What about Pesach Hotel?
So here's like what's interesting. Somebody was talking to me as follows. They're going to a Pesach hotel someplace in Europe. I don't want to get
Turkey,
involved
look at Turkey.
the examples, you know. Go to a Pesach hotel somewhere in Chutz La'aretz, and other than the fact that Jews are going there for Pesach to the hotel, there's seemingly Jews don't live there, they don't go there, there's no makom there, there's no Chabad house there, nothing. Like you go to such a place. So when you go to this hotel, let's say there's 1,000 people there in the Pesach hotel. So do you have to keep Yom Tov Sheini or not? What do you say?
They don't.
What?
People who are there, it's not,
Eretz Yisrael. Let's say they're from Eretz Yisrael. Well, let's say that case first. Why? Who are you mezalzel in front of? You're not mezalzel. We're all keeping. The goyim, you mean?
No, the other Jewish people who are in the hotel.
From Chutz La'aretz. Right. So you would think that's what you're saying, that it depends. L'chayra. If there's Jews from America there and Jews from Israel there and Jews from here, there, and there, right? So now, well, of course, it's I'm being mezalzel, even though it's not a yishuv. L'chayra, it's not a yishuv, unless that shafts the yishuv. I know that there's learned that there are Haredi programs that end Thursdays is the Yom Hashmini, is like the extra Yom Tov Sheini Shel Golis of Pesach this year, and if you're going to keep that, then you can't get back to Eretz Yisrael. So in other words, your cost in the hotel is another 2 days, another thousands of dollars to stay in the hotel an extra couple of days. So lechatchila they're going, and on Yom Tov Sheini they're leaving, and the heter is that they're not by yishuv. Not only that, I'm not saying what's right, what's wrong. I'm just telling you what's done. Not only that, there's people to go to places which is a mixture. Okay, that's one thing if it's a complete Israeli program. But what about Phil's case, where it's goyim, where it's Chutz La'aretz chutznikim, and so that should be for sure usher, right? No, not for sure usher, because you're not by yishuv.
The of Marit Ayin is causing confusion. But if it's very clear that there are two separate groups, and everyone who's Jewish understands that these people are already on there, and these people are going to do this, there's no Inyan of Marit Ayin.
I mean, Kehillat goes.
It's a chiddush. Last year Pesach, the second day, so I was in this little shul. I was a Chabad rabbi, so he said, "Can you daven for the Yomud?" So I said, "No, I can't daven for the Yomud because I'm holding only 1 day Yom Tov." So he said, "Hashem should help you. You should be zeicher to keep 2 days Yom Tov." Ma'aseh Shaya. There's a lot of ways to think. So let me. I have 3 minutes here. There's a very important sefer called Yom Tov Sheini Kehillat, written by Rav Fried in Dallas. It's a very important sefer for 2 reasons. One is it's a big Talmud Chacham, and second of all, it's the only sefer on the subject. So it's like Shmir Shabbos Kehillat, Yom Tov Sheini Kehillat, the only subject. It is very interesting that he's quoted in all the Svarim. Like he's considered the Marda Asra of Yom Tov Sheini Shel Golis. Everyone this Piskei Tshuva quotes him, everything quotes him. The godless of the sefer is that he had a very close. He's a friend of mine. He had a very close kesher with Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. So he was able to ask him many questions that have never been published before or after, Rav Shlomo Zalman. So the Sefer Yom Tov Sheini Kehilchasa, and it's like not just a small, many different Lumdisha questions that come up. He discussed with Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. So he's the kind of like the in charge of Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach's psakim on Yom Tov Sheini Shel Goliath. It's a niche. it's a thing. So I had it here, the paper or something. For a second, he brings here. This is a pat copy from his sefer. He writes there, Shamati me'agrashaz Auerbach shlita. Kiven de shebegam b'nei chutzlaret shoyim sham ba'oifen arai. I'm sorry. Even like the discussion, I'm going to a Pesach hotel, right? And there are B'nai Eretz Yisrael and B'nai Chutz La'aretz there. So, Shalom. So, Kivan Shigam B'nai Chutz La'aretz Shoyim Sham Ba'oifen Arai. They don't live there. They're in this hotel in Turkey. Like you say, they're in some kind of hotel. Ein Shem Yishuv Yisrael Aloy Seimakah. It's not called a Shem Yishuv Yisrael. That doesn't make it into a Yishuv Yisrael. V'oid, your svara, the vaday yodei b'nei chutzlar sha'ashayim imam mibnei Eretz Yisrael hain. Your svara. V'arehu kiben Eretz Yisrael. So if you go to one of these hotels, you're kibnei Eretz Yisrael, hashoya b'chutzlaretz im ishtoi, she bas chutzlaretz. Now think about that case. Let's say you're a ben Eretz Yisrael, you keep 1 day, and your wife keeps 2 days. She's a bas chutzlaretz. Okay, you have to daven for them. But she didn't make aliyah yet. Whatever the story is, there's a story. But the halacha is rashoyi laniach tefillin b'fonel. This already says early in the Achrayim that you're allowed to put tefillin on in front of her, even though she's keeping 2 days Yom Tov. The kivin she yardas, because she knows the chashuv ben Eretz Yisrael, like mikra zilusa the Yom Tov. Hachanami kivin the chabura achashem haviki mishpacha achas delesa zilusa the Yom Tov. Now, this is unbelievable psak, if it's true. I'm not questioning it's true, but I'm just saying I'll tell you why I say if it's true. Because in the Piskei Teshuvos he brings Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, the same Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, and here he says, read you a line, and then take you over it a minute. He says here that this not being min yishuv has to be outside of the tchum of the yishuv. So it means you have to be 2,000 amos outside of the yishuv. So let's say there's a yishuv in Istanbul and you're going to Turkey, it has to be 2,000 amos. And as he always does, that means, according to the Chazon Ish, 1.1 kilometer, and according to Rabbi Chaim, not 960 meters. That's how you measure from the makom of the Jew Canarsie, right? That's how you measure over here. So somebody who's outside of that, yishuv lasais malacha, mutter lasais malacha, ulisnai kim in Eretz Yisrael af l'kula. In all areas, you're allowed to be a ben Eretz Yisrael in a place where there's no yishuv Yisrael. Hainu, so he writes here, quoting on the bottom of Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, Hainu dafke im ein sham ima Yehudim b'nei chutzlaretz. It's only talking about if there's no chutzlaretz Jews there. Aval im nimsoim ima Yehudim b'nei chutzlaretz, afilu Yehudi echad. There's one Jew. Afilu zot ishto. Even if it's your wife. Kishi adayin chayeves Yom Tov Sheini shel Golios. It doesn't make a difference. Shuv aser loy lasais malacha v'chol agorim l'zilzul b'Yom Tov Sheini b'vneihem v'yesh maptirin b'fnei ishtay. Some say your wife is mutter. Now we're going to a program. I'm saying B'nai Eretz Yisrael and B'nai Chutz La'aretz together, where there's not B'nai, not Ishtay, not your close mishpacha, but 1,000 people, 500 of them from Chutz La'aretz. So according to this, there's no way, and this is a quote from Rav Shlomo Zalman, no way you're not allowed to do it, but we're freed. So he says, as he heard it from Rav Shlomo Zalman, that you have to be able, just like your wife is mutter, you have to be able to say the whole thing is mutter, because when you go together in a hotel, hareza kemishpacha achas mutter. Stretch, no? I mean, considering that, when there's 1,000 people in a Pesach hotel, I've been, at the end of the day, you don't know the guy's name who sits right next to you in the dining room. Is it mishpacha achas? But he's learning it's mishpacha achas according to the Yom Tov Sheini Kehillat, that it's considered mishpacha achas, and therefore it's mutter. So that's like, you could look at it like mishpacha achas, or you could look at it like a circus. Like half the people keeping Yom Tov, and half the people are getting into taxis to leave. So I'm not just presenting you the information, and maybe we'll pick up on it.
It couldn't be that.
But to take your suitcases out of the. But then if you see, I have less problem with a group of 1,000 Israelis going to Turkey, which they do, and coming back on Thursday, than if there's one Ben Chutzlaritz there. Because there you don't need the heter of mishpacha achas. You just have the simple heter of it's not a yishuv. Assuming that it's not a yishuv, you have to also assume Jews don't go there all year round. What?
Shama's two opinions. We're both talking about this.
Right. But first you have to establish that that's not a yishuv where they're going. Because Shlomo Zalman says if Jews go there, or Yashav he brings here, but if Jews go there any time during the year, even if they're not from, it's called the Yishuv Yisrael. So I don't know, I was looking at the one particular hotel program because somebody asked me about it, and I just went into Dan's Deals. And Dan's Deals, so they had a Sukkot program, there was a whole list of programs. So who says it's not a Yishuv?
Fred said that this psak, he's comparing when he's next to his wife, so he could
to the whole hotel.
To the hotel. That's his chiddush, or you heard from Shlomo Zalman the whole thing.
So he says, "Hareza k'mishpacha achas."
That's it. He's bringing from that he heard from Shlomo Zalman.
Let me show.